you for joining us. And thank you, Claudia, Sergio Godoy, Ileana Pichardo Urrutia, um, for organizing this. You guys are doing, it's been a great series so far. I got my MFA many years ago, and an MFA is a terminal degree. An MFA in creative writing is a terminal degree. It may not seem like that anymore. When I graduated, it was like that because there were very few MFA programs. And I don't know how many graduated per year, but it wasn't the staggering number of MFA grads every year now, which is it's up to 4,000 a year. And then you kind of add the years, 4,000 this year, 4,000 this year, and then maybe every year there might be 50 academic jobs in creative writing. So you're having thousands and thousands of writers competing for the same job. It wasn't like that when I graduated, fortunately, because I got a job teaching at a university in Minnesota as their creative writer, and then here at the University of Texas, El Paso. But an MFA is a terminal degree. It doesn't mean you're going to die after it, although many people have. It means that with an MFA and a book, you should be able to get these academic jobs, but that's just not true anymore. With the thousands and thousands of MFA grads every year, what are they going to do? Many of them have gone into publishing. And so we are doing a series of talks with independent publishers about why they went into publishing and to ask to talk a little bit about their experience. So it might help other MFA grads who may decide someday to start their own publication company or who have already started it. So today my guest is the publisher and founder of Veliz Books. Hold on. Cesarco Elgin. Elgin is a poet and translator from Uruguay. Okay, good. I was going to ask you to turn your camera. She is author of 3 collections of poetry and 3 chapbooks. Life, One Not Attached to Conditionals, coming out with, or which is with 30 West Press Publishing House, is her latest chapbook. Her poems, as well as her translation from Spanish, Portuguese, Portuñol, and Galician, have appeared in a variety of journals, including the US, Mexico, UK, including in the US, Mexico, the UK, Uruguay, Spain, and Italy. Cesarco is the translator of Death, Minimal Odes by the Brazilian author Hilda Hilst, winner of the 2019 Best Translated Book Award in Poetry. She is she co-translated the Portuñol Fabian Severo's Night in the North. She is also a graduate from the University of Texas, El Paso in our bilingual program. And more importantly for today, she is co-founder and editor of Veliz Books. Lau, welcome to, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me and for this opportunity to be able to talk about Veliz Books.
First of all, before we even get into the conversation, let me congratulate you for getting the job. There's so few creative writing jobs, tenure track at university, but you got one. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And congratulations, that's awesome.
Thank you, I'm so happy. I recently got a job. I'll be starting in about a month in the English department, the creative writing program at the University of Houston downtown. So I'm thrilled.
And what genre are you specializing in?
Well, this first semester I'll be teaching Introduction to Creative Writing and fiction workshop, but I've been hired as a poet and literary translator.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And after your MFA, there weren't a lot of opportunities to get great jobs like this. Do you think that your experience in publishing helped you make you a little outlier, kind of an outlier compared to the other candidates?
I don't know. I should ask them, but I think that every experience that we gain and that we acquire and what we learn, everything makes us better candidates for anything. So I think it might have helped that I have been published. It definitely helped. Probably, I'm guessing, that I got that award, that I have the press, that I have experience teaching, even you know, that I have an MFA, that I have a PhD, that I have an MA in English. You know, I think everything helped. But I have to say that you were talking about the MFAs as its terminal degrees, and I can't highlight enough how important the MFA at UTEP was for me in a lot of ways, as a poet, as a starting to understand, first of all, owning that as part of my identity, but also understanding what is important for me as a poet, as a publisher, as a professor, and it all comes back to building community. And being a publisher is that it's one more way of participating in the literary world, and it's another way of building a community of readers, a community of writers, and even the community within the Veliz Books team, right?
Right. Yeah. Well, when I was here when you were a student, I've been a professor in the MFA creative writing for, gosh, I think it's been over 20 years now. You're talking about you're feeling old. And you were a no-brainer in terms of acceptance. I mean, you were an excellent poet, but you also spoke multiple languages, not just obviously Spanish, but you're from Uruguay, and English, but you also were fluent in Portuguese and Hebrew, and I don't know, Galician? Really? Come on, how does that happen?
Oh, everything. I don't. Again, a community. I was doing my PhD in Boulder, Colorado, and there was a group of Galician students, and they sort of adopted me into the group, and they spoke Galician amongst them, and I answered in Portuguese, and then it was just fascinating to me because Spain, like a lot of Latin America, or most of Latin America, is centralist. So, you know, outside of Spain, we only hear about Madrid, and maybe a little bit about Catalonia. And here, there was this whole world that was opening with a totally different culture. I started reading books. I got really excited, and then I started translating, and yeah, that's how it went.
And you translated from a language that I'm going to admit I never heard of. What is Portuñol?
Portuñol is the language that is spoken in the borders between Uruguay amongst them and other Latin American countries that border Brazil and Brazil.
Wow.
So there's a whole movement to make Portuñol official and not just it's a mixture of, no, it's not a mixture of, it's a language in and of itself. Also, Portuñol varies from region to region. Even within Uruguay, the Portuñol from one area of Uruguay and another is different. There's still no official way to write Portuñol. So, for example, the book that I translated, sometimes one same word, the poet writes it differently. It's very, very interesting.
Well, you know, I deeply admire your press, Veliz Books, and what you're doing. And one of the things that I think makes it such an amazing contribution to the literary landscape is the translated texts. You have so many different texts that weren't originally in English, and you know, can you talk a little bit about some of those books that you've had translated?
Yes. From the very beginning, well, first of all, I have to say that I started this press with Minerva Laviaga. Both of us are the co-founders, and now I even then, but also now I don't work by myself. I have a wonderful team and community that works with me. one of these people is Cristal Acuña, and she is also a graduate, not from the MFA, but from the BA in creative writing at UTEP. Mm-hmm. She's an amazing person. She, like, my right hand. I couldn't do it without her. Then also graduated from the MFA in creative writing is Silvana Ayala. She does the covers for us. Miranda Arocha Smith, also a graduate from the MFA. I didn't know
Miranda was working with you.
She sometimes does, she has one more pair of eyes that reads some of the books, not all of them, but she's great. And then we have a new fiction editor, Sean Bernard, an associate editor, Genevieve Kaplan. Yeah,
so right now, as it stands, who is the acquisition editor, the editor that decides we're going to go with this book?
So the way that, I'll promise to get back to your translation question, but I didn't want to give the impression that I do it all by myself and that this is like nothing is done by one person ever. It's always, again, a community, and I'm very, very grateful to work with these people. They're wonderful. So the way that acquisitions work is that we have a submission period every year from March 5th to May 5th. And the reason we used to have it from May 1st, March 1st to May 1st, but I was like, no, I'm not working on May 1st. So yeah. So we have submissions in 3 categories: prose, and that could be nonfiction or fiction, poetry, and then books in translation. And we ask to see the original and the translation. We read both. So for example, for fiction, the fiction editor, he reads all of it and gives me the 3 best. And together we decide. And sometimes Cristal reads those 3 as well, the finalists, let's call it that. I do that for poetry and translation. I read all of them. I, pick the 3 top ones and send it to Cristal. And this year I also sent it to Genevieve Kaplan, and that's how it goes.
How many books a year do you publish?
We publish between 3 and 4. Last year, that's a large number. I mean, that's a big number, thinking of the fact that all of us are volunteers and all of us have day jobs. So it's it's a big number. Last year, because of COVID and I was totally overwhelmed, we did two wonderful books, but 2. And this year, the idea is to do 4. Okay. So going back to your question of translation.
The translation question. Yeah, I was just following the labyrinth.
So yeah, I mean, I think that's fun. Real conversations go all the way. So the translation piece, we think it's really, really important. Now we have an imprint, actually. Toad Press is an imprint, and they publish chapbooks in translation. So as you see, the whole team is in on the same vision, which is democratization of literature, and not being insulated in one culture. It's important to share cultures, learn from other perspectives. Also, I'm a translator myself, so I'm obviously interested in it, but this is the fact that we have translation books is another way in which we are dialoguing with readers and writers.
The MFA and the creative writing community in the United States has been so insulated for the last 20, 30 years. And if you go to, at least it used to be this way, and I think it's starting to change thanks to people like you, who are giving, who are more international and multilingual than the MFA creative writing community has been in the US. It's always been very English centered. It's always been very dominant culture centered. But if you go to a literary festival in Latin America or in Europe, there's going to be multiple languages. I mean, so many languages. But I think that's starting to change. Thanks to uh, uh, you know, things like what you're doing. Um,
And actually, again, I say this with all my heart. The MFA is so important. The fact that it's set in the border,
right,
and it made me think of so many things. I mean, the setting of the MFA was so important. Also,
right.
the fact that the MFA was bilingual. There were people from different cultures. That is something that you can't take for granted. Seriously.
Right, right,
Um,
absolutely. And it is, I believe, the future of the creative writing community. The creative writing community is going to be 100% or nearly 100% international in the next 2 years. It's not going to be so insulated according to language anymore. And that's
yeah,
just proven everywhere.
international or multicultural. I mean, this is one of the things that I found very attractive of the University of Houston downtown. It's the diversity, right? And the
Right.
multicultural. So yes, I agree with you 100%.
Well, that's good. I want to give you a kind of an interesting statistic. I'm sure you know this already as a publisher, but maybe not everybody does. There are about um, 1 million books published every year in the United States. And that's not an exaggeration, and worldwide about 2.2 million books every year, which means there are 6,000 books on average published every day throughout the world, and about 2,700 in the US alone every day. It wasn't like this when the MFA started. There were not so many books published, and these include self-published books, of course, but they also include the books put out by proliferation of independent presses. I was talking to Edward Vidaurre yesterday, and Flower Song is coming out with 44 books this year. If you can imagine that kind of that kind of work. But with so many books and so many writers vying for attention to get their books sold, why did you decide to start a publication company? Why did you just start? Why?
And look, that's a great question, but it's a question that reminds me of the question of of not a question, but of the issue of writing. Oh, I'm not going to write about love because everyone has written about love already. I mean, if it were up to that, I wouldn't get out of my bed because everything has already been done already. There are so many people in the world. Everyone's doing everything. But
No, that's a brilliant first part of your answer. And I completely agree. What I liken it to is opening a restaurant in New York. If you were to open a restaurant in New York, somebody might say, well, why? There's so many. You like restaurants everywhere in New York, but you're doing it because you love to make the food and you want to share it.
Yes, I do it because I love the work. Everything about it. I love everything about it. Reading the submissions, seeing them come in, and I feel so honored that the writers have chosen our press to send their work to. It's I have cried because sometimes I say, oh my God, that person has sent a work to our press. Oh my God, it's an honor that the trust that they put in us. It's beautiful for me. For example, when we go to the AWP, I hardly go to any panels because obviously I have to be at the Veliz Books table, but it's the best thing ever to be there with all our books and to be able to talk about them. It's I love it. I absolutely love it. It's also obviously the time when I see Cristal and the others that work at Veliz Books, because we're all in different places. So yes, I do it because I love it, but also it was actually at an AWP that you go to the AWP and it's an overwhelming amount of writers, poets, translators, publishers, and everyone's there looking for connection of some sort. they students or not students, professors, they want to, they want to get their work out there. And even though the book fair is full, there's there's room for one more and one more. And presses don't work by themselves. They like I said, they work in teams, but we also partner with a lot of other presses. We do readings together. We talk about publishing issues. We participate in panels together. Everything is a collaborative process. Even our authors, I look at them as partners, because as you know, with an independent and small press, they have to do a lot of work, and it's their baby, it's their book, and it's our book as well. So it's beautiful, and there's room for everyone, right? And it's not a competition. It's not this capitalist thinking of, oh no, there's so many now, I have to make my way. No, it's not that. It's the attitude, at least our attitude, is, oh great, we want to be part of this conversation, we want to be part of this world, we think that we can collaborate and bring something to this conversation, and that's why we do it. That's what we're doing, and that's the mindset. Not, oh my god, this other press, they did this, and no, it's, oh, that's wonderful what they're doing, we're going to learn from them. And
Well, that's a great answer. Absolutely. Let's tell the story about how Veliz Books came about. You graduated with your MFA. Minerva, who also was a student in our bilingual MFA and still lives here in El Paso.
Yeah.
Um,
So
story. How did it happen?
we are both graduates from the MFA, but we didn't coincide. We didn't meet. I didn't meet her during the MFA.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she graduated before me. I don't know exactly when, but it was before me. But we met because after the MFA, I stayed for another semester in El Paso, and I worked for Border Senses, which is a nonprofit that has several projects. I was in charge of the Border Senses, the literary bilingual magazine, and Minerva was in charge of, at the time, Memoria del Silencio. And we started working together and getting to know each other. She's a fiction writer, I'm a poet and translator, and we talked about this dream that we both had of starting a press. And then in 2015, I go to the AWP. She wasn't there. I went to this panel that was, you want to start your own small press, come to this panel. I went to the panel, and after I took 1,000 notes, I still have them. I'm happy to share them with you afterwards. And I called Minerva and I said, we have to do this. We're going to do this. So that summer, this was at the beginning of 2015, and in August, I went to El Paso. We drove to Marfa, Texas. We had a little retreat, and we started the press. And in August, so in a month, we're going to be having our 6th birthday.
Wow, has it been that long? Jeez.
Yes, it's been that long.
And you decided to go for as is this a nonprofit or is this a business?
This is a business. We are in the now with the new team. We're in the process of becoming a nonprofit.
And why are you making that choice?
For a lot of reasons. One of them is a financial reason. We think
you can get more grants that way. You can apply for it, and then tax status and all that.
Yes, exactly.
And let me ask you something. I know this might be a sensitive question, but I just have to ask it. I know people want to know, have you made any money off of this company?
Yes, it's a sensitive question, but it's an important question, and I believe in being honest. So Minerva and I understood, and everyone in a small press, I think they understand that a small press is a process. So you start with one book. We started with 3 books. That our first year,
Do you remember the first? Do you remember the first three?
Yeah, it was, I have them here actually. The Dead Will Rise and Save Us by
Oh,
Pedro
Pedro,
Rosa.
an MFA, no, undergraduate, graduate from UTEP,
Right.
MFA from Indiana, I believe.
Yeah, and it's a collection of short stories set in the border. Beautiful. And again, we're so lucky that we got these books. The second book is, this one is in translation. It's an anthology of 6 Uruguayan poets, and it was edited and organized by Laura Chalar, and it has introductions by Gerardo Ferreira, a scholar, and each poet has a beautiful portrait done by a Uruguayan
You know,
artist.
I could see the love you have for these books as you're just like, you're lit up.
I love them. I love them. Seriously, I fall in love with each of them. And the poetry book we did that year
Yes,
was Jeff
yay.
Perkins, yes, Travelers Aid Society. Such a smart book. It was so closely related to music, to an urban setting, and keen observations. Beautiful. So
And Jeff is a professor in our bilingual creative writing department. So you knew him from the program. How did it feel to be able to publish your own professor?
well, that's the thing, and it happened during my PhD too. I mean, you graduate from a program, whatever program it is, and then your status changes, right? So from a student to a normal person, and while I was in the MFA, I was maybe the dynamics of the relationship between the professors and mine were defined by, I'm the student, you're the professor. We're going to talk about, class poetry or whatever it is that, fiction. And then when you leave, I mean, you are more than just a student, right? Being a student was one part of my identity at the time, and then and now being a publisher is part of what I do, and so we reestablished relationships. So now with Jeff, we're both poets, so we're colleagues, right? We're both poets, we're both professors. Yes, I'm a publisher, and he's a published author. I mean, yeah.
Right.
But like I said, it's an honor. It's an honor that somebody that I value so much, his work is so intelligent that, and it being trusted with his work was like, wow, this is.
I like that language, being trusted with his work. Can you let's unpack that word, trust. A writer needs to trust their publisher. Why?
Totally. Well, first of all, it's a relationship between the author, translator, poet, whatever, and the publisher. You send them something that you've worked so hard on, and then and you have to trust them that they will do it justice with the physical book, right? With the cover. Well, I like the cover. Well, they, I've seen books that I don't like, but we try to make books that are beautiful objects, right? So, you trust them in the aesthetic sense, but you trust that they will submit your book to, nominate your book to awards and prizes. You trust that they will actively support that work that they have published, but also your future work. Right. You trust that they will be active in the literary world and society, and that they will go to book fairs or etc. You trust that they will help you, and in a variety of ways. For example, 2 years ago, I think I was asked by a literary journal if I could recommend poets. And obviously, the first poets that I want to recommend are my poets, right? The authors that we publish. So, that's one little way, right? We constantly ask we repost what they post, and we ask them to let us know about events that they're doing, even if they don't have to do with the book that we published, so that we can support that too. I've of every author that we have published, I I have gone and bought all the books that they had published previously or that they published after they published with us. I love our authors. I just love them.
Wow, that's powerful. Can I ask how many books what's the acceptance to rejection ratio per year? Submissions.
I'm gonna throw a number because I don't remember exactly, but it's I would say less than 10%.
Yeah, I'd imagine it'd have to be.
And
Yeah.
each year it gets
By the
harder.
way, your webpage is beautiful. I'll show it
Thank
later
you.
on in just a minute, but it's a really beautiful webpage. Yeah, so I imagine you're going to have to make a lot of rejections. But one of the things about the traditional model of publishing, way before we had this proliferation of MFA programs and independent presses, is that a publisher would not only buy the work, but they would curate the work from the beginning all the way to when it's out, and then they would do whatever they could with publicity. However, a lot of independent and university presses just don't have the budget anymore to do that kind of promotion. But writers still kind of expect it because most writers, I think, have a idea of the traditional. But it sounds like your press is using a traditional model in terms of you're not just accepting a book and expecting the writer to do the work, although the writer needs to do work. That's just a reality.
Yeah.
But you actually curate the book once it's out. Can you tell us what kind of things you do?
Yeah, I nowadays, especially if you're a small press like us, and I'm going to use this expression, which I love, es todo a pulmón, meaning it's like I said, we're all volunteers, and this comes from our energy, our time, and our love for what we do. Todo a pulmón, and again, we don't work by ourselves. The author has to do their work. And what does that mean? That means as an author, you have to go to readings, try to promote your books in different ways. And I know that this sounds horrible, especially to shy people like myself, but it's part of the work. And
it's the reality of the business of the let's just say the industry.
Yes, it's the reality of the industry, and the more the partnership between the work that we do and the work that the author does to promote the book, the better outcome, and the more we sell, and the more readers that book acquires. And then obviously our authors go on to publish with other presses. Sometimes they publish with us again, but it's beautiful for us to see. Either way, if they come back to us, it's wow, they liked us so much. And if they go on to another press, it's yes, this is amazing, But it is a partnership. I mean, on our part, we do what we can. We have a social media presence. We go to AWP, to Alta, which is a literary translation conference. We promote our books as much as we can. We nominate them for awards. And by the way, we're very happy because in 2020, this book, April Warnings, it was
that's the Colorado Book Awards. That's huge.
That is huge. That's
awesome.
Huge. Yes, and it's super well deserved. This is a writer. He used to be a journalist, and you can tell the writing is so good. The stories are they're amazing.
There's a movement in casting, for lack of a better word, I'll call it Hollywood casting, although I don't think it's so centralized in Hollywood anymore, but casting in TV shows to even bit parts to cast those who have a large Instagram following and a large Twitter following. And I've seen writers who are just incredible on social media, have a lot of followers, have a lot of shares. And I think it's easier with many publication companies for them to get read because they have so many followers and perhaps even get published. Do you consider the social media presence of your writers at all?
It, no, I mean, yes and no. No, because when we read the books, we read the books, right? Is this
Absolutely.
good writing? Is this good poetry? Is this
So if somebody had 200 million followers on Twitter, you wouldn't publish it just because they had 200 million followers on Twitter.
no, that it will come in handy if that at some point, yes, it will come in handy, but we never look at that as that's also in part very superficial. I see it as a little bit of a superficial. So is that what's important? And then just
Because it's about the person and not about the work.
and also like it's very complicated because social media, there are a lot, just like with small presses, there are a lot of ways of going about social media. Some authors have I also have, I'm an author and I also have a social media, and some authors, post a lot, others not so much, and others post about, their literary work, others post about, other interests, and it's all good and fine. But again, what we do has to do with literary work and not with that. I mean, I'm all for the authors and translators and poets having their life and doing what they want on social media, but that's not a require, certainly not a requirement for us. And also in part, if you think about it, if you're gonna only think of social media is more important, you're borderlining on ageism, because
Right.
yes, maybe a younger poet will have Twitter and blah blah, and maybe an older poet won't.
As Lau, that's a really important thing that you're saying, because as an old guy,
Be included, yeah.
I noticed, like, if you look through the AWP magazine or the Poets and Writers, and there's these conferences, and all the writers, they look like models. It's crazy. And you hardly see an old guy like me going,
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, I'm glad that people look really nice. I mean, it's great.
right. There's nothing wrong with it. But
Right.
what I'm saying is that those kind of writers who have a social media presence and who have have an easier time of it going out and promoting their books. Not now. I'm not even talking about looks. I'm just talking about youth and energy and passion and
Yeah,
vitality.
but like, and again, things like personality and culture. I remember when I was looking for a job right after my PhD, or my last year of my PhD, I had a friend that said, you have to go and do a networking. When you go to this conference, go and do networking and blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God, no. I come from a culture where networking is not, it's seen as you're showing off, and I'm very shy. So that was like
Yeah.
the worst advice I could have received. So I don't know. Each author is a world, and everybody's different. They go about doing different things, and again, I mean, they whatever it is that they do, even if it's outside social media, within, it doesn't matter. But to talk about their work, to be passionate about the work, to participate in the literary community, go to conferences, talk to other poets, not go and networking and here's my card and I'm so and so, and it doesn't have to be like that. It could be like that if that's what you want. I mean, nothing against that, but so
Yeah. I always tell my wife I'm not very good at promoting myself. So when a book comes out, I feel lost, and I'll do a couple of posts, but and she says, she always tells me, well, you're telling yourself you're not good at it. And if you're telling yourself you're not good at it, you're not going to be good at it. It really does require a lot of confidence and perseverance to put yourself out there in today's literary digital world. And the pandemic really screwed a lot of writers up. They didn't know quite what to do because suddenly that's all they could do with social media presence. Has the pandemic in any way affected your company, and if is in a good way, in a bad way?
Well, has affected us in the sense that we are it's made of people, and we were all obviously affected.
Right.
We all of us in our day jobs had to transition from, normal life to Zoom life, and then think about how do we continue with the press and help our authors through that. So we had a series of Zoom events. We did a Zoom interview. A lot of things. We wanted to stay active. It's I see our press as this is how I inhabit the world, right? Through writing, through teaching, through the press. But so I see all of these as our way, in this case, Veliz Books, as our way of contributing to, there's a pandemic, things are horrible, our students are having a hard time, our authors we are having a hard time. Let's create these spaces where we're going to talk about literature, because we believe that literature is not just what I do in my free time. I read a book when I have time. No, through literature, we participate in conversations. And for example, the pandemic has a lot to do with the climate crisis and capitalism. So for example, this book, the Uplands, Book of the Corral and Other Poems by Ushio Nobunaga. He was a Galician poet in the 20th century, very important Galician poet. And he was translated by an amazing translator, Edin Mode. This book, it's about eco-poetry before eco-poetry was a concept, right? So again, we're participating in these conversations through our books. And that's why for us, it was important to continue our work. If we have to move online, we'll move online. If next thing we have to do something else, we'll think about it and do it as well. And again, I think it's important to emphasize that presses, people, there are very many different ways of doing different things and different models. There isn't one best, or, it could be best for you according to who you are and what works best for you. And for us, it's important to respect that in our authors. We don't pressure our authors into, no, you have to go and get an Instagram. You have to go and open a, I don't know what account. You have to do this. No, do you. Do the work, obviously, but do it in your own way. And we will do it in our own way. And again, it comes back to the trust. They trust that our way is a good way. And we trust that they will work for the book as well.
Did your model of the model you use as a company, do you publish or print a certain amount of first run books, or do you use on-demand printers?
No, we publish a first run that oscillates depending on our calculations of who the poet is and etc. A print run that goes between 300 and 400. That's a first print run.
That's a decent first run.
And many books, including actually these two. Many books have gone on. We have had second print runs. So yeah, it's according to the need.
What do you wish you would have known about publishing before you went into publishing?
That's a complicated question, because it implies that it's important to have all the answers or a lot of answers before you start the work. And this is something that I'd like to say or advise people that would like to start a press. You start a press as with everything in life, right? You start it and you don't know anything, right? The first time you teach, you don't even know how to build a syllabus or how to stand up in class, and you build experience and you rely on your team members, you rely on other presses. We have reached out to other presses and asked questions, and we are happy also when people reach out to us and ask questions. We believe in this, I can't emphasize it enough, but we believe in this community and working together. I think that we have learned a lot throughout the years. We have tried things that didn't work, and okay, that's a good learning experience. Now we know that that doesn't work. We have, every time we reevaluate, get together, think about, okay, how do we want to move forward? What can we do so that it works better? For example, one step is this, trying to become a nonprofit. Okay, that's something new, right? So no, you won't. I don't know. That's hasn't been my experience with anything. You don't start out knowing everything. In the same way, your career as a writer or a poet or a translator, I look at my first poems or my first translations, and I'm like, oh my God, because you've evolved, you become different people.
It sounds like being a publisher for you is a creative act.
Yes, definitely. And it's an ongoing process, right? I learn from other people. I learn from experience. I am open and porous, right? I am, right. I want to learn more. And in the same way that I stand in front of a classroom, I never stand saying, I know it all, ask me whatever. That's not, I'm here, maybe I have a few more years of experience with you than you, but I'm learning with you guys as well. The same thing in any aspect of my life, and that goes for Veliz Books as well. We are a press that is learning, that we have acquired experience. We put everything into it, but not perfect.
Like almost every answer you've had, I love that answer. When I first became department chair 4 years ago, I was doing it very reluctantly because I wanted to write. We're writers, and I decided to treat the department chair as a creative process. And yeah, I didn't know everything when I went in there, but you discover things as you go, and I liken it to writing a novel. If you know exactly where the novel's going and exactly the steps that are going to take to get there, it's probably not going to be a very good novel.
Right.
So let me ask the question in another way. What was a major challenge as a publisher that surprised you and that you had to deal with?
It's a constant challenge, which is time management, right? I believe in work-life balance. I need my free time because I am a person, but also because I'm a poet, I'm a translator. I need my free time to just do nothing, right? Not to have any plan, to just do nothing. And also we are social beings, so we need that time as well. We all have jobs, and moving to a new city, preparing new course. So that's always a challenge, right? How much time can I give? And when I give, I want to give 100%, not, oh, I only have 2 minutes, I'm gonna do a rush thing, and then, oh my God, I did it rushed and I forgot all the accent marks, or I did, whatever. So, I wanna give, how much time can I give? My 100%, right? So it's always a challenge, and also working with other people, you have to respect that. Recently one of our members said, if I might have to work less, okay, we'll deal with that when it happens. So that's the time management issue is a constant challenge. It's part of self-care also, dedication, self-care, how much, a lot of factors. The financial parts that you were asking, and then we moved on to something else, is always a challenge, right? How can we be as healthy financially as possible?
How did you do it, by the way? How did you go to AWP, print 300 copies of a book? How did you do it?
A pulmón. And again, sorry that I didn't answer the question, but so we understood from the very beginning that this was going to be a process, right? We did our research. Okay, this is what we need to publish one book. This amount of print run. This is what we need this is the money we need for the table. This is this. We okay. So and in the beginning it was out of pocket. Like I get my salary and I still do that, right? And I put aside a part for Veliz Books. And you think about it, and people may say, "Oh my God, I'd rather go on a trip." Well, people have all sorts of hobbies, and this is not a hobby for me. This is a passion and my job. But and they spend money in a lot of in a lot of things that I wouldn't. And I think that this is important for me, so I spend my salary on this.
Right.
But I always knew, because I was the one that in charge of budgeting and stuff. So the first year 100%, and the second year only 80% we put from the pockets, right? And the second
Only
year
80%.
what?
I said only 80%.
Well, if you think about it, it's 20% less. Woo, that's
Right.
great.
No, that's great.
No, the important thing is to walk. It doesn't matter if it's forward, backward. You walk and you learn, and the important thing is not to it. For me, if we had continued putting 100% each year, that would have been a failure. That would have mean that we hadn't done our research properly, that we weren't taking care of the press. And taking care of the press is important, because if our press it goes under, and a lot of presses unfortunately go under because it's so difficult,
I imagine, yeah.
and they close, then the authors are in big trouble, right? Because their books are no longer available, and they're not in they can't be found in the distribution companies, and they can't be found. So it's a lot of responsibility. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna just close the press and who cares, no.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest fears of authors that go with independent and non-university presses, and that their book will go out of print.
Right. Yes.
If
And
it's a trade press, a New York press, and it doesn't sell, 500,000 copies, it's going to go out of print immediately.
Right. And that's it. That's part of the trust too.
Yeah.
What's going to happen with my book 5 years from now, 10 years from now, right? So, each year we have to put out of pocket less, and I have to put out of pocket less and less, which is great. Each year, when the percentage of what I put out of my pocket goes down, it's a big victory. And it means that the press is financially is becoming more and more financially independent and healthier. I would love for the future to be able to pay more stipends. For example, we get some donations. We got a little donation. I mean, it was a generous donation, but from a person, and we used it to pay stipends to some of the people that help us with the books. So hopefully in the future we can pay better stipends, we can pay salaries, we can print more books, we can hire somebody to work in do the marketing, and but again, it's all a process. We're going to get there, and bringing all our books with us,
You're at the University of Houston downtown. On the other side of town, there's the University of Houston main campus. And out of that campus, they have Arte Público Press, which has been a Latinx press for, maybe 50 years or more. But essentially, it's been run by Nicholas Canellos. And if Nick were to leave the University of Houston, he could actually take that with him, or there are incidents where that happened. Have you ever thought about housing your press within the institution where you teach? Would that be a possibility?
This is the first time actually that the institution where I teach, it has taken an interest in my press, which is something beautiful to me.
Oh, absolutely.
Which I don't take, so I don't take it for granted. It's beautiful that they see this as important.
Right.
ideas, my fantasies would be, I don't know if to house it in the university itself, but I would love, again, to be able to get a grant to pay stipends for students, to have paid internships for students, to be able to work with them, train them. A lot of the people that work with us or have worked with us have come from recommendations from different creative writing professors, or that they themselves have reached out. And yes, at the moment we are not a paying, unfortunately we can't pay them, but at least they might get some experience. So yeah, that would be amazing for me, right?
They're very lucky to have you at University of Houston. I wish you would have applied for a job with us, because we would be lucky to have you back and bringing
Oh,
your press with you. I think housing it in a university, if that is a possible future, would certainly ensure the longevity of all those books. It's one of the great things about university connected presses.
also little things that you might not think about, but for example, my apartment is at the same time my home, my office, a warehouse, storage. So
Right.
if I had that, I don't know, maybe even an office to put all the books in there. I mean,
No.
not an office for me as a professor, but an office for the books.
Well, I can't imagine, with the love and the energy that you're putting into this press, I can't imagine that it's not going to find a permanent home in somewhere. Uh, and I think the writers can be confident that their books are going to be around in 10 years or more. And
Yeah.
I have one more question. It's a two-part question. Then I want to invite Ileana and Sergio to take questions from the observers. When I remember when you first started, there was an issue of not wanting to go with Amazon. And I think from what I heard, it was because of the big percentage that they take, or the reduction of the whatever. Uh, I'd like to know a little bit about what your struggle with Amazon was initially, and then why you don't do ebooks or Kindle books.
So Amazon, I'm not gonna say it's evil, but
Yeah, it's okay. We're among friends.
I mean, Amazon has they seem to have a vision that is totally opposite to what we envision, and how we run things, right? So again, this idea of competition capitalism, and we're gonna offer the book 1 cent less, and so that it appears first and we sell it. It's not good for the press. Even now, Amazon, I mean, we work with Amazon a little bit through our distributor, and even so, we are also a part of a CLMP, which is a community
Right.
of literary magazines and presses, and we are in discussions all the time, and one of the discussions is that Amazon takes a bigger cut than bookstores, right?
Wow.
So that's not good for bookstores. It's not good for the presses. It's not good for anyone.
Right.
So yes, I don't have love for Amazon, I have to say. Then the ebooks and Kindle is another story. And again, it's a small. We think it's a great idea. It's in the to-do list. But, we just we want to be realistic with the people that we have, the time that we have, and what to focus on. Certainly, that would be something that we would want to do, because it's a way to ensure readers from, more readers. It's a way to ensure that the book is
Right.
alive and healthy as well. So yes, I don't have anything against ebooks or
But the thing is when you guys first started coming out with books, your books are just beautiful. And I know Silvana does a lot of the designing, who was also a graduate from our program.
Mhm.
Um, and that's one of the things you lose when you go electronic, is you lose the art of the book. and the art of book design. And then the second thing you lose, and one of the things I admire about your company is that you're willing to do books like this. I mean, look at, here's a conventional sized book, and then here's this book. And this book needs to have
Right.
this length of pages in order for the poetry to be what it wants to be. And you can't do that on an ebook.
Right. And yes, and that's part of it. Then we have this book, which is gorgeous. I mean, the writing is gorgeous, having all the flowers, and also it needs, and
Right.
show a page that so that you'll see it. It needs a different space, and we want to be able to do that. We want to be able to show things like
Right.
this, and yeah, I mean, like everything, it has its advantages and disadvantages, but it might be a possibility for people to access books in that way. They are generally cheaper to acquire. So yes, I think it has its positive sides for sure.
Right. Well, thank you, Lau. Do you mind if we take a few questions?
Oh, please, my pleasure.
I'd like to invite Ileana Pichardo Urrutia and Sergio Godoy to turn on your cameras and take questions.
Hi, we don't have questions. We're still getting questions from the audience, but I did have a question. I wanted to ask, after all this time working on a small press, how has your relationship to literature changed? And do you notice things that maybe you didn't notice before entering the publishing world?
That's a great question. And it's a complex question because it always comes hand in hand with a question that is, how do you continue writing your own poetry or doing your own translation if you're doing, so much of the press work? But I see it as it complements everything I do, complements my writing or my teaching or my publishing, right? So, but also I'm a reader. First and foremost, I'm a reader, and being part of a press is a lot of reading. You read manuscripts, you read and reread, the books that you're going to publish, to find, edit them and find typos and things like that. And yeah, and maybe one of the consequences of the being in a publisher and an editor is that I can't take off the editing hats. Like I see a sign on the, in the street, or I look at a U-Haul box and I see, oh, they put an accent mark on caja, or they did this, or, oh, there's a typo there, that's a consequence, but it's fine. I mean, it just means for me that, oh, okay, good. That means that I've become a better editor. So it's good. So that's good for Veliz Books. So yeah, I feel that Veliz Books has contributed a lot to what I write and translate. I feel very inspired by the manuscripts that we publish and the manuscripts that I read, and we aren't able to publish because we can't publish 1,000 books per year. So yeah. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Laura. I wanted to ask you, where would you want to take Veliz Books in the future?
So I think that in order for Veliz to continue and to grow in a healthy way is to take it slow, to understand that this is a process and to take it slow, right? So now we're going to do this, and then we want to do this. And it's always important to have meetings with the people working at Veliz Books to see, evaluate, think about where we want to go, how we want to do it, what is best practices, to continue going to conferences, to continue to participate in conversations with other authors, writers, and fellow presses. So where would I love? I would love, again, like I was saying before, I would love to be more and more sustainable. So to continue in that path. I would love to be able to have these internships for students, to be able to offer that part, participate in our literary society in that way. I would love to, have more people come on board, to be able to, and I don't know, I don't have a, it's because everything for me is little by little, and always I want to take into consideration what my fellow teammates also want to do. To be true to ourselves, to check in all the time. Is this the direction we want to go in? Is it okay? Yeah, I don't know if I answered a question or rambled a bit, but
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Lau, thank you so much for joining us. I want to remind everybody that on August 11th, I believe it is, at 5 p.m., we're going to have a roundtable discussion. This is part of a series about independent publishing. We had Edward Vidaurre yesterday, today Lau Cesarco. On Monday, August 4th, we're going to be talking to Maria Maloney, who is the publisher of Mouthfeel Press. In fact, Lau, I was talking to Maria today. She showed me her new book. It's beautiful. I don't remember the name of the press. It's another independent press,
it's
but
Shauru, it's a press from Uruguay.
yeah, and it's translated by Laura Cesarco Elgin. So awesome. Anyway, I want to be talking on August 4th to Maria Maloney about her press, Mouthfeel Press. She's also a UTEP graduate. And then on August 11th, all three of the publishers are going to have a conversation. We'll have question and answers. In fact, Maria says, welcome to Houston. Your work is fabulous. And she's excited about your new position. We do have one question here. How long does it take to publish a book from the time you accept a manuscript?
So about a year. Sometimes less, but a year is comfortable. In the future, one of the things that I would like to do in the future is to accept manuscripts for 2 years out, and that way we can dedicate more time to the book, promotion wise and grant seeking wise, and so on and so forth. But for now, we are comfortable with a year.
Are there any other questions? Any questions from the observers, Sergio or Ileana? Do you know?
No, there's no more questions right now.
Okay, well, thank you, Lau. I know this press is going to survive, man. You just put so much energy into it. It's almost as if you've created an egregore, a spiritual entity that is going to live no matter what. Only an egregore made of love and passion. So it's I have no doubt this what you and Minerva and Silvana and your entire team created is contributed a lot to our literary heritage. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me, for the space, for everybody's interest in Veliz Books. Yeah, check out our books, check us out, reach out to us. We're here.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.